Obinna once walked through Enugu like a king. Tall, confident, dressed in clean suits that smelled of power. People greeted him with respect. "Good morning, sir." His neighbors whispered, "That man was born for greatness, so." At home, his wife Chika smiled every morning as she straightened his tie. "Obinna, you make me proud." He would wink and reply, "And you, my queen, you make me strong." Even his mother would tell everyone at church, "My son is a big man in the city. I don't beg, I thank God." But she didn't know that life was about to test that gratitude. "Gentlemen," the manager said, adjusting his glasses, "our investors pulled out. We have to let some people go." There was deep silence in the boardroom. Obinna's throat tightened, and when his name was finally read, his chest sank. He forced a smile, shook hands, and whispered, "Thank you for the opportunity." When he walked outside, his legs almost gave way. That night, Chika met him at the door. "What happened, my love?" she asked softly. He looked away. "Chika, I lost it all." Her eyes widened. Obinna looked so broken she didn't know whether to cry or hold him. She touched his cheek and said, "Then we'll start again, together." He nodded weakly, but deep inside, he felt something shatter. Days turned into weeks. Obinna wore the same shirt for interviews. He would leave early, smiling for Chika's sake, then sit at the bus stop with his brown file, staring at his reflection in a puddle. Every evening, he returned with his tie loosened and face weary. Chika always asked, "Any good news?" He would smile faintly. "They said they would call." She would touch his hand gently. "They will soon call, my love. Don't worry." But they never did. Chika opened her cupboard one morning and froze. It was empty. Only palm oil and salt remained. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Obinna, there's nothing left." Obinna looked away quickly, his jaw tight. He forced a smile. "Manage." But when Chika turned, he covered his face with both hands and whispered, "God, why me?" That night, as they lay on their thin mattress, neighbors fried stew next door. The smell filled the room like mockery. Chika's stomach rumbled. His mother coughed. Obinna stared into the dark, his eyes wide awake. The landlord's voice thundered through the compound. "Obinna, if you can't pay your rent by Friday, pack out!" Children stopped playing. Neighbors peeked through windows. One woman whispered, "Ah, the mighty has fallen." Obinna stepped outside with his head bowed. "Sir, please, give me small time. I'll pay." The landlord smirked. "You said that last month." He turned to the neighbors. "When he had money, he didn't know also. Now look at him." That night, Obinna didn't speak. He just sat outside, staring into the sky, whispering, "Even heaven is silent." Somto, their little boy, cried for bread. Chika searched everywhere, and there was nothing. She handed him a cup of water and said, "Drink, my son. It will help your stomach rest." When the boy slept, Obinna left the house quietly. He found himself behind a restaurant, looking into the bin. He hesitated, then picked 2 small bones wrapped in foil. He cleaned them with his handkerchief and took them home. Chika saw the bones and began to cry. He said softly, "Don't cry. At least he will eat something." Then he turned away, ashamed to let her see his tears. One day, he met his old friend Emeka, a man he once lent 80,000 naira to start a car wash. "Emeka," Obinna called out, smiling. Emeka looked uncomfortable. "Ah, Obinna, long time." "I need more help. I've been searching for work," Obinna said quietly. Emeka laughed awkwardly. "Things are hard for everybody, my friend." Then his phone rang. He answered it loudly. "Yes, Tell the mechanic I said add new tires. And then he walked away. Weeks later, Obinna joined roadside laborers to earn a little. The sun burned his back as he lifted cement bags. His palm bled, his shoulder screamed. One afternoon, a loaded truck lost control near the site. People screamed. Obinna pushed another man out of the way but slipped, and a heavy block crashed against his leg. He screamed in pain and collapsed. Blood flowed. The foreman shouted, "Carry him away." No hospital accepted him without a deposit. Chika ran around crying, begging, "Please help my husband." Finally, a nurse pitied them and cleaned his wound. The next morning, he woke up with bandages and shame. He couldn't walk properly for weeks. Every step was pain. Every breath was filled with frustration. One night, Chika found him sitting outside with his head in his hands. "Obinna, what are you thinking about?" she asked softly. He said, "I'm no longer a man. You married a lion. Now you live with a wounded dog." Chika knelt beside him and said, "I married a fighter, not someone who quits when the going gets tough." Tears rolled down his cheeks as he said, "But fighters also bleed." As if life hadn't pushed him enough, Mama Obinna's condition worsened. He ran to the pharmacy begging for credit sales. The pharmacist shook his head. "We are not running a charity here." On his way home, he met a friend who used to borrow his car. This friend drove past in a shiny Jeep. Obinna waved, but the friend pretended not to see him. When he got home, he found his mother lying still, whispering weakly, "My son, don't cry. I'm not angry. I can finally rest." Her words tore through him like a knife. That night, he sold his last belonging, his phone, to buy her drugs. A few days later, Obinna sat outside under the rain. The world blurred behind falling water. He whispered to himself, "Maybe dying is easier." Chika came out and saw him. She went under the rain with him. Drenched, she knelt beside him, grabbed his hand, and said, "Don't ever think of dying. If you die, who will I hold when the world laughs at me?" He looked at her tear-soaked eyes. "I don't know how to fight anymore, Chika. I'm tired of waking up to nothing." She hugged him tight. "Then let me fight beside you," she said. One morning, limping from the injury, Obinna still went to a construction site. While others argued over wrong measurements, he quietly observed. Finally, he said, "Shift the pillar by 3 inches. It will align." They laughed until they tried it and it worked. The manager asked, "Who are you?" Obinna replied quietly, "Once upon a time, an engineer." Within a week, he was given a small supervisory role. He earned 3 times more than before. Chika's eyes shone again when he brought home food. His mother's health improved slightly, but Obinna never forgot the taste of shame. Success didn't come overnight. It came through scars, sweat, and stubborn faith. Obinna saved every penny, no matter how small. He spent nights studying online, watching tutorials by flashlight, learning business management. When others slept, he sat with a notebook, whispering to himself, "I must rise again." He borrowed 20,000 naira from a pastor friend to buy his first cement bags. He molded the blocks himself with blistered hands and trembling legs. He carried them door to door shouting, "Try my blocks, they are stronger." People laughed, but one builder tested them and was shocked. Obinna's blocks didn't crack. That single order opened the door. Within a month, more builders came. He hired 2 boys, then 4 boys. He built a small shed and named it Obi and Sons Block Industry. Chika stood beside him every day, helping with orders, writing receipts, serving customers water under the sun. When one of the boys tried to mock her, Obinna shouted and cautioned him, "That woman you see is the reason I'm still alive." Soon, the little business grew. He started supplying schools, then churches. He learned to mix sand and cement with perfect precision. One morning, a government contractor visited the site and was impressed. Within 2 weeks, Obinna landed his first official contract. He used the money to rent a warehouse, buy a second molding machine, and employ more workers. He made sure every worker was fed because he remembered what hunger felt like. Years later, Obinna drove into the same compound where he once cried. A convoy of trucks followed him, each boldly painted Obi Block Industries. The same landlord who once humiliated him ran forward smiling nervously. Engineer Obinna, long time. Obinna smiled faintly. Life turns, sir. Sometimes slowly, but it surely turns. The landlord laughed awkwardly. Forgive me, sir. Obinna nodded. There's nothing to forgive. You only helped my story. As he drove away, children shouted, Engineer! 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 Chika sat beside him in the car, smiling through tears. He looked at her and said softly, We made it. She held his hand. No, my love, you didn't just make it. You became the man pain couldn't destroy. Years later, on Christmas Eve, Obinna hosted a large dinner in his compound. Dozens of poor families sat under decorated tents. Plates overflowed with food. He stood up to speak, his voice shaking. I once picked food from the dustbin behind the restaurant. Today, I feed hundreds. I once begged for rent. Now I build houses for others. Never despise small beginnings. He turned to Chika and Mama Obinna, who was now smiling and healthy. Poverty once sat at my table, he said, but I didn't let it stay. Everyone clapped, some cried, and that night, as fireworks lit up the sky, Obinna looked up and whispered, Thank you, Lord. You broke me, but you rebuilt me stronger. The moral lesson of this story reminds us that every pain you endure becomes a tool that God will use to rebuild you. True love is proven in hunger, not in wealth. No night of tears lasts forever. Dawn always comes. When poverty visits, feed it courage and not fear.